Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 125 of the 476ers podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the Sixers finals odds, so stay tuned.
Yo. Yeah. Justice for the blind. Just something that'll find in the rhymes that are coming from my mind.
Right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 125. Two episodes back to back, like Drake coming at Meek Mill. Shout out to Toronto Philly connection. Even though there is no Toronto Philly connection other than the Blue Jays beating us that one time, the Raptors beating us in the playoffs, then we beat them in the playoffs. That's it. There's really not, besides that, there's not much. In Philadelphia, we're not happy enough to sing like Afrobeat. Or to create Afrobeat music. We're just not in a good enough mood. I guess in Toronto they are. You know, if you have free health care, I'm sure you would be. But this is not about that. This is about the Sixers. So let's talk about them. It's been a while, obviously. I'm pretty sure I talked about them when we lost in the playoffs to the Heat, if I'm not mistaken, as out of shape James Harden was, doing what out-of-shape James Harden does, which is not much. Then obviously we come into the offseason. James Harden claims to have lost 100 pounds. I have a theory. I'm going to give you my theory real quick. I explained this to a good friend of mine a few days ago, and I've mentioned this many times. If you've ever seen so this is a two-sport theory, all right? It's football and basketball, real quick. So if you've ever seen specifically, Michael Vick is the reason why I had developed this theory. If you've ever seen a Michael Vick post-game interview, you notice that he looks incredibly jacked. His neck is the size of a fire plug, as people call it, or a fire hydrant, as better known. His neck is the size of that. I mean, my man is jacked. You wouldn't recognize him. Then when you see him on the football field, he looks like a little kid, because it's all within comparison, like within the comparison of the football field, within the comparison of, 250-pound linebackers and 300-pound linemen and all of these guys. Michael Vick, who is slight generally and is not super tall, looks very small next to, let's say, Jason Peters, who is 6'8", 325 pounds, right? And that disparity can also be transferred to the NBA, because for a long time now I've been saying that in basketball, when you see a basketball player in street clothes, he always looks very, very skinny. So when we came into this season and people were saying, oh, James Harden looked like he lost weight, because you kept seeing him in street clothes or you'd see him in some workout clothes. But once they put on an NBA jersey, the game changes. It looks different. It looks totally different. A great example of this is the minivan. If you look at George Niang in regular clothes, he just looks skinny. And then when you see him in basketball clothes, he becomes the minivan. And I don't know. Maybe it's me. When I look at James Harden on the basketball court, he don't look that much different to me than he looked last year. He's still like kind of loose with his handle. I don't know at what point he got loose with his handle. Maybe it's always been this way, and I just didn't watch closely enough when he was in Houston. But it just seems like he's always kind of losing his handle a little bit. He just looks the same. Not to say he may be in better shape. That's possible. He could definitely be stronger. He could be, more stamina, more endurance, the whole thing. That is all possible. But in terms of actually losing weight or looking skinny, he has fooled you guys. He looks exactly the same to me. Maybe I'm tripping. Maybe I need to look at pictures. He don't look the same as when he was in Brooklyn or when he first got to, in Houston 2 years ago. He definitely looks better than that. But it's not like he's never going to go back to prime James Harden. I said this on my podcast last year too. Guys like James Harden, they have body types that when they get to a certain age, his body type was never the body type to look ripped. You know what I mean? I think that Joel Embiid is similar to this. Just don't have the body type to look that way. Joker is another good example. Joker is not going to just wake up one day and look like Mason Plumlee. Or is it Mason? No, is it Miles? Whichever Plumlee brother was on the Nuggets and is now on the Hornets, whichever Plumlee that is, who's like, pretty jacked. Like, he's never going to go from that to that. It just is, his body type is like this. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter, because when you can do things like Joker does, you don't have to. Same thing with Joel, right? his body type is not, you're just not going to do that. James was never ever going to have a look as defined as Giannis looks. It just wasn't going to happen. But in terms of, like this idea of him losing on, I don't see it personally. Watching him in the preseason, still, maybe he looks a little bit lighter on his feet. Maybe this is me wanting me to believe it but it's preseason and guys are going at half speed. What if he's going at full speed in the preseason? Everyone's going at half speed and he looks, I don't know. So I can't see it. We're going to see it really this week, right? We're going to know. Obviously we made some moves. The biggest move that's happened this offseason, let's start with the top. The biggest two moves to me. One is that Tyrese Maxey looks like probably a top 5 basketball player of all time. And I'm not being facetious. No, I'm joking, obviously. Or am I? He looks incredible. We need reliable shooting. And I said this last year when we traded Seth, this idea that, oh, man, we've lost a ton of spacing. My argument was, well, not really, because I think Tyrese, people did not realize that Maxey he was a good three-point shooter. And then when Seth left and James came and James moved Tyrese off the ball, Maxey was shooting, I think for those last, however many games it was, 25 to 30 games of the season, Maxey was leading the NBA in three-point percentage during this preseason. I'm pretty sure he's leading the NBA in three-point percentage during the preseason as well. Every single preseason game he's played, he's had a incredibly positive shooting percentage, both just from the floor and from the three-point line, and in all types of ways, pull-ups, catch and shoots, the whole nine. My man has been putting work in. He looks incredibly fast. I mean, holy shit. It's a shame he looks so fast because he's the only person on the team that looks fast, the only person who's going to be fast on the team other than Matisse. But Matisse, okay. Well, let me see something. I want to see something real quick before I even continue. I want to look at let's see here, preseason. I wonder if I can find this. Matisse Thybulle stats. Just want to see something real quick. If I just want to confirm, I want to confirm what I saw. You know what I mean? Let's see here. Boop, boop, boop. Going back to my search name. Pop, beep, beep. Beep, boop, pop. Let's see here. All right. What we got here? Using my laptop that isn't super reliable. Okay. Okay. He shot about 3-3-pointers a game, 36% in the preseason for Matisse. Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay. Good job, Matisse. That's, sure. Sure. Okay. All right. So, anyway, Matisse is going to be running with him. There's a reason why I was looking at that. But we don't have a ton of running or athleticism. So, Maxey was good. Joel looks like he heard me say the things about his very heavy legs. Remember, if you recall, you may not recall, which is fine, last year towards the end of the season, maybe it wasn't towards the end of the season, but I had said it a few times during the season that his upper half was in incredible shape, and not that his lower half wasn't in incredible shape, but his legs looked so heavy to me when I saw him. It just seemed like his legs were kind of always plodding around, didn't even match his upper body. Again, not that they were fat, they just looked heavy. Maybe they were very muscular, obviously carrying weight. This preseason, I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm making this up in my head. I don't think I am. But when I first saw pictures of Joel, I want to say it was in August or beginning of September. Yeah, I think it was beginning of September. I think it might have actually been when training camp started, his legs looked trimmed down. You know what I mean? They looked a little bit lighter, and I don't know how you do that. Listen, is the NBA. So these guys are going to have training regimens that I have no idea how to do. They probably do know how to do targeted weight loss. The rest of the world is struggling reading magazines that tell you how to lose 7 inches across your love handles in 2 days. And it is just not real. It's like things like you jump into the volcano, take a swim, don't eat for 72 hours, and boom, 12 inches off your waist. But whatever it is, his legs look thinner to me. You know what I mean? I think that's a great sign, because I think that's like whatever it is, he had like obviously had lost weight, but when you would watch Joel, the speed wasn't quite there. You know, for someone as athletic as him, not that we want him running wind sprints on the court, but, you know, if you can get out and run a little bit, especially with Maxey, you're just going to make it easier for yourself, especially later in the season. You know what I mean? Where it's like, you know, just having that endurance, you know, you're going to miss games, right? At that size, it's just kind of a foregone conclusion that you're going to miss games, even though last year he would have only missed, presumably, if it wasn't for COVID, he would have only missed 2 or 3 other games. He had some freak injuries. But I don't think there's anything wrong with taking off a game here and there anyway throughout the season, especially if you're getting out and running a little bit in the open court just to get easier buckets. Joel generally does do that, but you could do it better. You could be a little bit more effective. You can beat your defense down there and get positioning before they ever get a chance to set their defense just to make it easier on you. Joe, we know already. We know. You did the Kobe MJ thing, right? You put those videos on there, you splice them together, and what that really says, it says a lot of things, but obviously, but really from a basketball standpoint, what I'm seeing and what we all know to be true is that it doesn't matter what defense we throw to you. You can make difficult shots. You can make any shot. You have every single move in your thing. You got a face-up game. You got a back-to-the-basket game. You have every single game. But in order to make your job easier, right? To make your job easier, because there's 2 different levels of exhaustion. And I think this is something that Tim Duncan had learned very early on in his career. When he got older, he started losing weight, and you would see Tim Duncan be way more aggressive about beating the defense down the court so that he could just establish position and get an easy bucket, and that's it, right? It's the easiest way to play basketball. I remember this one time. This is, you know, tales from LA Fitness. Back in 2000, this might have been like 2018, I was playing at LA Fitness in Fort Washington, and I got to an argument with this dude. This dude was kind of getting on my nerves pretty much the whole day, and because we were standing on each other's corner. We were both big men. He was more athletic than me, but I think I was a little bit more polished. But he was good. Not to say that he wasn't good. Fuck him, but he was good. He's a good basketball player. Anyway, we started playing fives. We had been doing like a Rising Sun challenge. We're on the low. I was getting dominated by this guard who was like, he was like 6'1", and he was just so strong. It's like playing against Victor, but stronger, you know, and Victor, it just, like when anytime I know I'm going to have to play Victor, shout out to the homie Victor, I'm going to play Victor in basketball I need like a 2-week prep before, because I need to get my body strong. You know what I mean? Because Victor is stronger than he looks. He's just someone so light in the ass can be so heavy at times. Anyway, that's not the point. You know, most people would take their opportunity. This is what separates me from everyone else, right? Because this is self-awareness at its top, the most humble, humility at 100. I could take the opportunity to sit here and say I bust Victor's ass, but I'd be lying. So this dude, we're playing. And what happens is there's somebody on the sideline who's talking shit. He starts talking shit on behalf of me because this dude has a big mouth. And the dude has the nerve, because I essentially am doing this. What I'm talking about is getting easy buckets. So we get the rebound. I break out. I was in better shape at this time, to be clear. Break out into transition. I hit like an open 3-pointer. Break out into transition, get a transition layup. Cut, you know, things like I'm on the perimeter, he's not paying, I catch him sleeping, I cut to the basket, get a bucket. And this dude's talking, he busting, blah, blah, blah. And this guy said, yeah, but he's not scoring on me, you know, like one-on-one. Now, I then got the ball and scored on him one-on-one. However, that wasn't the point. That was me, my pride and my ego saying, I'm going to score on you one-on-one because it's not that fucking hard. But 2, it was really the point that this is a misconception of how basketball is to be played, because there's the expression part of basketball, which comes with a little bit of ego. So that's that Kyrie Irving, I can beat you one-on-one no matter what defense you throw at me. I can score on you, and that's cool too, right? It's like a great feeling to dominate another man. You know what I mean? Pause. But then there's the other part of it where it's like, no, but you actually want to score easier, because if it's about winning, if it's about making things easy for your team, backdoor cuts that cause the defense to collapse on you because your man is sleeping, and then you get that ball and pass it to the open man. That's what the game of basketball is about. It's not about, let me stop the entire game of basketball. Let me get the ball on the block here. The Tobias Harris special, back down somebody bigger than me, and then try to score on him. You know what I mean? And that's the Tim Duncan thing. That's what all great basketball players learn early on in their career. Kobe's great. You know what I mean? Kobe's great, but Kobe never figured out a way to get himself easy buckets. He always the tough shot maker, you know, and it's like, you know, the willpower and all that, but that doesn't contribute to winning. It doesn't contribute to like making your teammates happy and making them feel involved. And that's the thing that like would take Joel to the next level. Get easy buckets. We know you can score on everybody in the NBA. If someone starts talking shit, you can go ahead and say, oh, you know what, hold, slow it down. I'm going to score on this bitch-ass motherfucker right here. And beep, beep, boop, up and under, the whole thing, whatever, cross you over, step back, three-pointer, splash. Okay, cool. You can do that. We know. But for the rest of the game, let's get easy buckets. Make your job easier. Especially with someone like James, who's such an elite passer, there's going to be those opportunities. James is never going to be able to run with you. It's very clear. You know what I mean? My man is going to move like Professor X post-wheelchair. You know what I mean? I mean, pre-wheelchair, it didn't seem like he ran that. I have no idea if Professor X ran that fast pre-wheelchair, but we know post-wheelchair, he wasn't moving very quickly. Yeah, it was Professor X. I'm sorry. That sounds insensitive, and I apologize if that was insensitive. But I'm really talking about the nature of the character of Professor X as opposed to his, because I've seen people in wheelchairs move very, very fast. I'm going to stop talking about this because I keep sounding stupider and stupider. I apologize if that was insensitive. Point being, Joel needs to make the game easier for himself. As far as everyone else, Tobias. Okay, well, Tobias is back. We added PJ Tucker. Here's the thing, all right? So we added a lot of guys. And, okay, added PJ Tucker. Melton, I like, good backup point. He's definitely going to help us. We got Montrez, whatever. You know, hopefully he doesn't miss time because obviously he has this legal situation, whatever they found in his car, some sort of drogas. What concerns me is that, you know, I remember 2 years ago or so, somebody was saying how slow the Sixers were. We didn't really have a ton of athleticism. And I really started taking notice of that at that time. And looking at the moves we've made this year, we not only did we not address that, we've leaned into it by getting PJ Tucker. So now, like, there is a chance that we have this heavy-ass lineup of, like, James Harden and PJ Tucker and Tobias and George Niang and Joel. And, like, this lineup would cause a rift in the time. It's so dense. The density, it's like, you know, it's like the, you know, one of those rooms that you go into that is so quiet, like you can hear your body's functions. You can only be there for so long because you literally hear your body functioning in this room. That's how quiet it is. That's how dense it is. It's so dense that somehow it will suck sound into the void and into this. It's like one of those things, you know, it just, and I don't know why we're so heavy. I don't know why we would go that way. Then on the other side of it, not only are we heavy, but it's just Joe. Joe's the tallest player on the team, and that makes sense. He's 7'2", 7'3", whatever he is, 7'1", whatever. I don't know. I don't know heights anymore because Wembanyama's fucking it all up for me. Somebody said he was 7'3". There's no way that man is 7'3". I think I've seen other people say he's 7'5". Yes, that's probably right. He's probably 7'5". Okay, but then beyond that, everyone else is 6'8" and shorter, and I don't know why. I mean, this fucking Daryl. And I'm not letting Daryl off the hook because I know people are like, oh, to Daryl, man. No, I like DeAnthony Melton. Okay, sure. Melton's going to help us. Yes, sure. There's a reason why the Grizzlies let Melton go somewhat easily because they have Tyus Jones and they're just like, okay, yeah, Melton is replaceable. It's not that special to get a player who's that replaceable. For a team, the Grizzlies, who were one of the best teams in the West last year, who were, you know, fighting for the 1, 2, and 3 seed last year, for a team like that to just let go of their backup point guard that easily, for us to get them and pretend like this is the addition of the offseason, okay, it's good. We needed a good backup point guard. I'm not trying to disparage. I'm just saying let's slow down here for a second. Slow down. I just want to get to know you. Shout out to Bobby Valentino. To Bob Valentine. He's going to help. PJ Tucker. Okay, yeah, sure. PJ. Toughness, somewhat defensive guy, yes. Does a lot of things, gets on a lot of people's nerves. Here's the thing about PJ Tucker. Because I keep seeing a lot of, oh, yeah, I mean, our toughness. You got to be tough now when you got PJ Tucker. We've increased our toughness. PJ, Montrez, tough. Here's the thing about toughness. You know who's tough? Kobe Bryant was tough. Despite Kevin Durant's mindset and despite his Twitter and how, whatever, that dude's pretty tough. I'm going to be honest. Kawhi, he's tough. You know what I mean? Toughness to me, Giannis, that guy's tough. 17 for 17 in a closeout game in the finals. Mentally tough and physically tough. Guys like PJ Tucker and Montrez, these are guys that when you're losing, right? Let's say you're losing a game, their toughness turns to petulance. And that's a different thing. That's something that people are not going to love that much of. You know what I mean? But maybe they'll fit in because this toughness is the toughness of the Nets coming here, beating the shit out of us, and then us screaming, and then us chanting, fuck Ben Simmons. Because it's like, okay, sure, whatever, fuck Ben, whatever you want. I think that's too much, but we're also losing by 30 points right now. Our healthy starting lineup is facing the Nets, who are missing Ben, and they're beating us by 30 right now. That's the type of toughness that PJ Tucker and Montrez pick. They bring. You're losing by 20, 30, and they're just irritating people. When you're winning, it looks good, sure. When you're losing, you look stupid. Toughness, team toughness, that's Tim Duncan, right? That's the you see the Shaquille, and I keep saying Tim Duncan, obviously, but I love Tim, so I don't give a shit. But the Shaquille O'Neal interview when he got to talk about Tim Duncan, and he said, no matter how many elbows I threw at him, I couldn't break him. That's toughness. Kevin Garnett, I stopped talking shit to Tim Duncan because he just wouldn't respond and he would bust my ass. That's toughness. That is toughness. Joel needs to bring toughness. That will bleed to the rest of the team. PJ Tucker toughness, Dwight Howard toughness. Those guys' toughness are stupid fouls or flagrant fouls when you're down 10. That's that toughness. I'm not saying it won't help. We do need it. We need a hard-nosed defender, guys to get in somebody's chest that they won't back down. We do need that. But I want to just slow down on the toughness. Where we really need toughness is coming from our leader. That's Joel. That's how you get to the next level. That's what separates the Giannis and the Steph and the LeBron and the Kevin Durant to an extent from all the other great players, from the Joker, from the Joel, from the Dame Lillard, from fucking Paul George, Kawhi. Put Kawhi up there too, because those are champions that when they face toughness, raise their level. They come up to that level, and it doesn't seem like you can break them. That's Steph last year in the finals. Steph proved it in the finals last year. People were questioning that. That's what people were really questioning, whether they realized it or not. Wanted to argue he was overrated, blah, 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 blah. You can argue whatever you want. I can sit here and argue all day about why Steph is a top 10 player in the league all time, why he's ahead of Kevin Durant and all of that. Last year in the finals, he proved that's toughness. It's me versus this team. Super athletic, super big. It doesn't fucking matter. I've reworked my body to face this toughness. That's what Joel needs to do. Giannis did that already. You know what I mean? And when you're tough like that, that bleeds down to the rest of the team. Then all of a sudden, guys are tougher and they're emboldened to be tough. James doesn't have that. It has to come from Joel. It's not going to come from PJ. PJ will help amplify the toughness that's already there. PJ was great with Jimmy Butler. PJ was great with, and credit to Jimmy, who hasn't won a championship, but has earned the toughness title because of his performance in the finals. And, generally just how he is. And, listen, I'm not a big Jimmy fan, but I'm going to give him that credit. PJ helps amplify that. PJ on the Bucks 2 years ago helps amplify the Giannis message. But when you see PJ on the Rockets with James and Chris Paul, it doesn't really do anything now, does it? It's just a bunch of whatever. It's just a bunch of noise and static, and it makes things worse. When things go bad, it gets worse now because of PJ Tucker. And that's really what we have with PJ. With Montrez, guys like Patrick Beverley do that too. It's like when it's going bad, you three fucking assholes make it worse. Not that they're assholes. I don't know them personally. I'm sorry. So I want to slow down that toughness thing. PJ will help us without a question. He gives us a reliable corner three-point shooter, a reliable kind of get into somebody's shit on defense. And luckily, because of a lot of guys in the NBA right now, and, we're going to struggle against perimeter defensive against teams on the perimeter. Because, one, we always struggle against teams on the perimeter. But, two, because that is the part where things have kind of raised up. And I mean, when I say perimeter, I mean guards specifically. I mean backcourts. I mean the backcourt of the Cavaliers, the backcourt of the Hawks, right? We're going to struggle against those backcourts without a question. However, when it comes to wing players, which is really where the championships are right now, the Bucks coming out the East, the Bucks, the Nets, the year before, the Raptors, right? Was it the Raptors the year before? Am I tripping? Yeah, right? I can't remember because that's the COVID. I'm confused. Yeah, Bucks, Raptors. Yes, Bucks. Yeah, Raptor, whatever. The Nets, another team you have to worry about, right? You're worried about about that wing talent, KD, Tatum, Jalen, Giannis, those guys, and that's what PJ Tucker is here for, to try to help slow them down. You know what I mean? Guys who are not using crafty dribble and all this speed. We're going to struggle against that. Tyrese probably needs to take a step as a defender. I think he's a very good defender already. You know, I think that people kind of underrate his defense for some reason. I know it's not for some reason. It's because they haven't been watching him, and they just see him scoring points, and they're like, great on offense. I don't know about his defense, though. Exactly. You don't know about his defense because all you've seen him do is score a couple times. He's a very good defender. He has great length, and that's what makes him an effective defender. I know he's small, and people are, oh, he's kind of small. He is small, but he has very long arms, and that's really kind of the thing you need the most in the NBA. That's what makes Steph kind of has long arms, if you ever noticed. That's why he makes him an effective defender. Active hands, long arms. That is what Maxey has. He has to continue to be a good defender. It looks like he got stronger this year. That's going to help him get through screens. And, you know, other than that, you're going to have Matisse. And so Matisse, obviously, looking at his three-point percentage, everything I've heard is that he's just been working his ass off, shooting threes. All he's been doing is shooting threes, working on his jump shot. That's what we need, right? So if you're telling me that you're going to shoot 36% from three on 3 3-pointers a game, I accept that. I can use that then. You know what I mean? I can for sure use that, Matisse. I can use that then. We can do something with that. But if you're going to come in shooting 25%, well, then nothing's changed, and we can't live with that. In today's NBA, guys like Tony Allen, credit to him, and shout out to him, who was an incredible defender, tough guy, hard-nosed. Those guys don't exist anymore. You can't do that. Andre Roberson, he was out of the league. He's out of the league 3 years ago. He was playing in the Western Conference Finals. In that series against the Thunder. He was young at the time, but he just never, he had a couple of injuries, but never actually accrued an offensive game. Couldn't shoot threes reliably, So then all of a sudden you have the Thunder when KD leaves, and you have Russell Westbrook on the court with Andre Roberson and Steven Adams. You can't do that anymore in the NBA. That cannot exist. Steven Adams is almost phased out of the NBA doing that. He's been working on his threes this offseason. You cannot be nothing on offense. That's one of my arguments about Enes Kanter and all the things he said. Your defense isn't good enough, Enes. You don't spread the floor. So what are you bringing here? A couple rebounds and some post moves that stop a possession. That shit doesn't fly in the NBA. So Matisse, you can't just be a defensive specialist. You need to be able to spread the floor. So glad to see that. That's why I was looking at his preseason numbers. And we'll see. Listen, I love Georges Niang. He'll be healthy, obviously. Hopefully he's healthy by the time we get to the playoffs. He had knee issues at the end, and obviously his shot was suffering awfully by the last round of the playoffs, and it was because he was dealing with a bulky knee. He helps us a lot. Not to say that Niang is the most important player. I'm talking about him like that, but he is extremely important off our bench. He also helps when guys like Toby are off the court, obviously stuff like that. He works really hard on defense. He doesn't have the foot speed necessarily to keep up with some of these other guys, but he works hard, and he can be effective at times. He's somebody who can be kind of hard-nosed. You see him get into people's faces and get into people's chests, and you see him do those things. It's very PJ Tucker-like, you know what I mean? But again, it's not enough unless I don't have to go back to that conversation. We just had it. So we're going to see. What else is there? Shake is still here. He has braids now. That's fine, I guess. Dan, I kind of wish we could get Danny. I would like to get Danny back. He would be another reliable 3-point wing player off our bench if we could. I don't think the Grizzlies plan on letting him go. He was involved in the Melton trade, and obviously he's recovering from an ACL. They tore late in the playoffs, so whether he'll be back this year, I don't know. He's so bold-like, I have no idea if he'll be back this year. But if he is back this year and somehow we could get him back, I would love to have Danny Green back. I know we like to hate on Danny, we like to make fun of him, but listen, man, he works on defense. He'll grab offensive rebounds every once in a while. If you told me that you can bring Danny off the bench for 15 minutes a game, especially on a night when Matisse Matisse goes in and he's having stupid fouls, and then he's shooting threes off the side of the backboard, and you're like, okay, Matisse, fine, sit down for a little bit. We're just going to bring in Danny here to kind of stabilize this. At least when Danny hits the backboard, it doesn't like frazzle him. He's like, okay, cool, I'm going to shoot it again the next time. And we'll see. Our bench is a little bit better. Again, the Montrez thing, it's whatever. If Montrez was so important, you just wouldn't see him getting, like, just quit on every single team he's at. I mean, he's been on fucking 12 teams. You know what I mean? Like, wait, got drafted. Who did he get drafted by? I think he got drafted originally by the Clippers. No. He got drafted by the Rockets. I'm sorry. He got drafted by the Rockets, was involved in the CP3 trade, ended up on the Clippers. Then from the Clippers, he was on, might have been on the Hornets. Then he was on the Wizards. Now he's here. When guys are good, they don't get quit. They're not so easily let go to go to a bunch of other teams. You know what I mean? You don't just easily let go of guys to go to other teams, right? Because like his skill set, what you would rather do is pay someone like Zubac or like someone like Jakob Poeltl or, whatever. You'd rather pay one of those guys who is a bigger body and longer on, is a better defender in general. You know what I mean? You'd rather pay those guys a lot less money to give some of the value that Montrez has while not taking things off the table that Montrez takes off. So I wish we could have had Drummond back. Drummond was the perfect backup center. As much as that was a journey watching him play basketball, the truth is Drummond helped us win a few games last year, without a question. He helped us win a few games last year. He's on the Bulls. There's a couple notes that I want to add at the end here that I missed on yesterday's podcast, but I wish we could have him back. I'd even consider taking Dwight back. But the thing is, with bringing Dwight with PJ Tucker, and especially if we kept Montrez like that, no, I don't want those three guys together. That to me sounds awful, honestly. That sounds like the opposite of like apple picking. Like apple picking sounds really fun and peaceful and a really nice family time, beautiful nature. You get to eat apple cider donuts, and there's pumpkins and beautiful colors in the fall harvest. And then when you put Dwight Howard, PJ Tucker, and Montrez in one place, it becomes the exact opposite of this thing. You know what I mean? It's just the opposite of that. Whatever that is, like essentially being north of the wall in Game of Thrones. Shout out to House of the Dragon. So yeah, what do I expect this year of this team? I expect this to be a good regular season team. The problem is that two of the most important figures here, Doc and James Harden, have not proven anything. And three of the most important. Let's bring in Daryl. Three of the most important figures here have had no real playoff success. All right. Doc won a championship. He's been coasting off of that. Okay. I'm just going to be real. Doc has been coasting off a championship, and he's been coasting off of the way that he helped steward the Clippers franchise during the, this asshole when, he got outed for being a racist, the Donald Sterling thing, who, to be clear, the difference between, if you're wondering what the difference between Sterling and Sarver is Sterling was widely hated throughout the entire NBA. It was easier to get him out. Sarver, although it looks like he's going to be selling the team, they couldn't force him because I don't think that they had the same type of owner support to get him out. I don't know how other owners viewed him. Sterling was generally viewed and hated among everybody. No one liked Donald Sterling. But anyway, that's the point. So, how he helped steward that franchise through that situation and stuff, and how he was in the bubble when he was with the Clippers. But one thing that this is a Bill Simmons thing that I'm stealing, and I kind of agree with him, is to an extent, because I think that it can be taken out of context. Simmons's argument is that no coach has ever had more talent and done less with it. Maybe. Because right now, Tyronn Lue, you could make an argument for that, because Tyronn Lue had that Cavs team that won the championship. Obviously, had Kevin Love, LeBron, and Kyrie. Now he took over this Clippers team from Doc, and they had, with all that talent that Doc failed with, and they haven't really done it yet either. Now, obviously, Doc predates that. He had T-Mac, but those teams sucked. He had the Celtics. When they were healthy, they won a championship. Then there was, the next year, KG has his knee issue. They lose in the playoffs, and then the following year, they make it back to the finals and lose. So, you can say whatever you want about that team. I think that team succeeded. I think that team was successful. Then had all of these Clippers teams that were 55 to 60 win teams, but there was a lot of injuries kind of sparse throughout that. And then when you talk about talent, and you're talking about Blake, and listen, I love Blake. You know, Point Blank was a really fun time for 2 years that it lasted. And Blake will make it to the Hall of Fame, and, you know, he'll do all those things. But Blake, as a Hall of Famer, you're going to talk about Blake Hall of Fame like you talk about Sean Kemp, or, you know, like you talk about guys like that, you know, like, you know, Mitch Richmond, or, you know, Tim Hardaway, like, oh yeah, you know, Chris Webber, even, like, you're going to talk about guys like that together, you know, which is like, when you had them, if they were the best player on your team, were you going to win a championship? No. You could take a step back, right, and look at this objectively and be like, are you going to say that Doc failed, or are you going to say that if Blake was one of the best, your second best player on your team, could you win a championship? It remains to be seen, obviously. The Chris Paul thing, is it Chris Paul that's collapsing in his own way? Is it Doc that's collapsing? One may never know. You know, maybe Chris Paul has bad luck. Maybe he does choke. I don't know. I find it hard to say that Chris Paul chokes when 50% of the time he doesn't choke. So I don't. What would you say about Chris Paul? He seems very steady and consistent. I think really what it comes down to is, if Chris Paul is your best player, can you win a championship? Especially in an era that has 2 of the top 10 basketball players of all time that Chris Paul was sitting through. Chris Paul sat through, depending on how you feel about Kobe. I know there are Kobe fans out there who are going to get pissed off because I'm saying maybe he's top 10, whatever. If you believe Kobe's top 10, then Chris Paul sat in the West, all right, through 4 of the top 10 greatest players of all time. In the West, Steph, Tim Duncan, Kobe. Well, who's the other one? Steph, Tim Duncan, Kobe. Steph, Tim Duncan, Kobe. Okay, never mind. 3. Oh, and then in the East, LeBron. You know what I mean? Obviously, he never played LeBron in the finals, but just the point that during this era, where 4 of the top 10 players of all time are stomping around the NBA, Chris Paul stuck in the West with facing 3 of them. You know, so I don't know what you make of Chris Paul. So anyway, it's not the point. It's not about Chris Paul. Doc Rivers. So the idea that Doc has had the most successful teams and has done the least with them, I think that you could make the argument either way, but the point that we're even having the conversation is really what is the point of Doc Rivers' career. Is Doc a good enough coach to steward us with this team through the East? I'm going to be honest. I don't think so. But then on the other side, I don't know that any coach is a good enough coach to get through to James Harden. Because you know what the difference between James and Ben Simmons is? Ben Simmons, in that, let's just take a microcosm of that moment, of the Ben Simmons. Let's take the Ben Simmons passing out of the dunk, and let's take James Harden shooting 2 shots in the second half last year. Let's compare these 2 moments. You know what the difference is here? Ben can't make free throws, and that's why he passed up the dunk. He was scared to go to the line because he knew he was going to break both them bitches. You know what I mean? James, there is no reason. James, 50-point triple-double James. 8 3-pointers in a game, James Harden. That's who we're talking about here. Why would you only take 2 shots in the second half of a playoff game? You know what I mean? Can anyone get through to him? I don't know. My man threw an entire birthday cake into the ocean. And we laughed it off because it was like, I see, he's dedicated to losing weight. Meanwhile, there are fish in the sea dead now. Dead because my man just threw a birthday cake into a fucking ocean. And that birthday, who knows? Whatever, I don't know. Why am I so dark all of a sudden? Well, it's not that I'm dark. It's that, listen, we're going to win 55 to 60 games. I think if everything stays healthy, everyone stays healthy, we'll win 55, 60 games. We'll be competing for a 1 seed in the East, without a question. If you're going to ask me, can we win a championship? I think that completely depends on Joel. I'm going to tell you what this depends on to me. It depends on Joel taking another step. And that step is not somewhat physically, a little bit, half a step physically forward, but mentally and emotionally taking another step like a full step, maybe even 2 steps forward, to really understand what it is to be a leader, to take the leadership, and relegating James Harden to our third option on this team, and Maxey, from what we've seen in the preseason as a scorer, taking a step to be our second scorer and our second creator. So James, our second scorer behind Joel, and our third creator behind Joel and James. You know what I mean? That way, when the shit gets tough, we don't got to rely on James. James, just be ready to hit an open shot. Let Joel and let Maxey cook. Toby, hey, you're doing great things in the community, man. Way to go. Yeah. And that is the path to win. The path to winning for the Sixers is a heavy reliance on the development of Tyrese Maxey. Because if the plan is that James Harden, who's going to be our starting point guard, rightfully so, that we're going to be relying on James to be 1B to Joel's 1A, we're not going to win a championship. We're not going to get to the finals. It just isn't good enough. James is just not good enough. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? It's not that he's not good enough in terms of talent and in terms of what he's done, and his resume is incredible. It's that he's not good enough mentally to get us to the championship. He just isn't there. We cannot rely on that. It has to be Maxey, who has this unabashed attitude where it looks like fucking smiling and having such a great goddamn time. And look at what he's done with his skill set and his talent and keeps improving. It's going to come down to Maxey being the 1B to Joel's 1A, while James is the name that everyone understands and knows. And, oh, look at Harden finally took the Sixers to a championship. Sure, whatever you say. The real Sixers fans that are watching are going to know that it took Joel and it took Tyrese Maxey. And that's really going to be what it takes. As crazy as that sounds, because 2 years ago, you would have never said that about Maxey. Maxey 2 years ago was, oh, that's a really nice thing to have. Last year, Maxey became integral. This year, if we're going to win the championship, he has to be our second best player, arguably. That's how I feel. That is how I feel. And that there is no Doc coaching that's going to take us. Because here's the thing. If you're telling me that we can match up, that everyone is going to match up to every other player, and that it's going to come down to coaching, we're going to lose those battles. We're not. I don't want to see Doc go up again. Well, Ime's gone, so I don't know what the Celtics guy is going to do. And Budenholzer, I'm not super impressed with as a coach in general. But essentially the Budenholzer way of coaching, which is like good enough to get you 60 wins a season, but then like bad enough to look hungover during every single playoff game, the Budenholzer way of coaching only works if you have Giannis being Giannis, you know, and that is what Doc needs. Doc is only going to work if you have someone like Paul Pierce do what Paul Pierce did when they won that championship, when they went on that run, and how important KG was defensively. And on the other side of that, Doc trying to overcome Doc is going to require Joel going to the Giannis level of dominance and winning, and guys like Maxey being able to carry us in scoring when James goes out to lunch or whatever, and when Toby thinks he wants to post up Giannis now and whatever. It's going to require Joel taking that step and being able to overcome Doc's poor coaching. I don't think we have to necessarily worry about the Heat. Hopefully not. You avoid them at all costs. You don't want a Doc versus Eric Spoelstra thing again, because that's worth 2 wins in the series right there. You don't want Doc versus Nick Nurse, same thing. You know what I mean? So if you're battling anyone in the West, you don't want Doc versus Tyronn Lue. You don't want Doc versus Steve Kerr. You don't want Doc versus Mike Malone, I don't think. You know, so we'll see. So my guess is we're going to win 55 to 60 games. I could see us make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. So that's my logical part. Emotionally, we're going to win a fucking championship this year. Let's go Sixers. Hey, go Phillies. Red October, let's fucking go beat the Braves. I was terrified of the Braves, I'm going to be honest with you. We beat the fucking Braves. That's great. We have the Padres next. I feel like we could beat the fucking Padres. Anything can happen. This is why baseball playoffs, I've probably said on this podcast before, the baseball playoffs are my favorite playoffs because literally anything can happen. The Dodgers, 100-win team, lost in round 1. That's because that's baseball, baby. That's it, everybody. Go Sixers. See you on Tuesday. Well, I'll see you on Wednesday. Tuesday, we play the Celtics opening night. Then we play the Bucks. It's going to be a crazy. We're going to learn a lot in the first 2 games. We're going to learn a lot, not necessarily for what dictates the rest of the season, but we're going to learn a lot for what this team looks like and what this team has worked on during the preseason. You know what I mean? We're going to see what this looks like, and we're going to know what we need to improve on. So it's going to be a very illuminating first 2 games. If we lose both of them, you'll see me on here depressed and whatever, but it's fine. It isn't over. Then we play the Spurs on Saturday. So that's it, everybody. Wash your hands. Stay safe. Go Eagles. We got the Dallas. By the time you hear this, we would have probably beaten Dallas. Fuck them anyway. Even if we lose to Dallas, we beat them because it's Dallas. So, and then Phillies, Padres, that starts Tuesday. Go Phillies. Go Flyer. I don't know anything about the Flyers. I'll be honest. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. All right. I'm sorry, Fly guys. Go Flyers, though. Everyone, wash your hands. Stay safe. Wear a mask. You don't have to wear a mask anymore, but please, if you're sick, don't do stupid shit. You know, I was listening to of the CBS Fantasy Football podcast, which is fine, whatever. I don't, just whatever. And the Adam Azer, I think is his name. He had gone to a Giants game 3 weeks ago, and he was sick, and I almost fucking snapped. I almost snapped. You were sick, and you went to the game. It wasn't COVID. That's not the fucking point. It's not the point that it wasn't COVID. That isn't the point. Fucking Christ. If you're sick, just stay the fuck home. Don't make anyone else sick. It doesn't have to be COVID. Don't give me a cold. I don't want to be sick because of you. I don't care if it's COVID. Shit. I wish there was a motherfucking immunization for idiocy. Sick. Stay home if you're sick. Black lives matter. Asian lives matter. Jewish lives matter. Oh, you know what? LGBTQ plus. Damn, I think I missed stuff in there. Matters. I always forget all the letters. All of the lives matter. Stop being stupid. That's it. Take care.
Yeah. Justice for the blind. Just something that'll find in the rhymes that are coming from my mind. Used to come